Hello, fellow leaders. My name is Prasad Vadlamani, and I'm your host of the Indian Leadership Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to welcome you to a very entertaining yet purpose driven leadership talk with Nandini Nair, who moved to the USA from India as a child and never had to think of her immigration status until she was considering law school. While she has always stayed connected with her Indian roots, it's her work as immigration lawyer that drew her closer to India through the clients she helped. Nandini is a gifted storyteller, so listen to her speak about her breaking the mold and becoming a lawyer, which wasn't as common a career choice for an Indian woman as it is now, or when she set up her own successful law practice, which she gave up to join a big law firm. Her story is all about grit and hard work, yet filled with humorous moments. I would recommend listening to this episode while sipping a strong Indian filter coffee because it's filled with morning freshness. I hope you enjoyed the talk. Hello, Nandini. Welcome to the Indian Leadership Podcast. Hello, listeners. Nandini Nair is a partner in Greenspoon Marder's Immigration Practice Group. She has been practicing business immigration for over 2 decades and has lectured nationally on immigration and diversity issues to a variety of organizations. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Prasad. I really appreciate you having me here. And I look forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely, I am. I mean, this is the best part of it. I get to speak to so many people who achieved great things in their life, willing and able to relate their life stories in helping prepare the next generation of leaders. Your presence would especially be important because, your experience, both as an immigrant yourself and also practicing business immigration is going to be extremely important, both from the immigration point of view, diversity and inclusion point of view, and the kind of struggles, minor, major, unspoken struggles that a lot of immigrants go through. I'm sure you're getting similar questions, and if you can help any of them in this way, that would be truly beneficial.
Yeah, I get multiple questions as I've grown in my career, just how do I get there? How do I get to your spot? Or what does my kid need to do? They're interested in law school. I've definitely seen an increase in Indian immigrants wanting their kids to go to law school than when I was a kid. When I was a kid growing up here, I'm an immigrant, but I did come here when I was younger, when I was around 8 years old. That was not a profession, especially for women. It was a very difficult and challenging stereotype to fight. My father, I think, was very, concerned about this because I wanted to be a lawyer since I was a kid, probably 12, 13, 14. So this is something that I aspired to, that I really wanted. But my father, specifically was not for it in the beginning because, he felt that would make me unmarriageable in some sense, because the Indian culture, women lawyers mean they're big mouth women. And so he was very much like, oh, sure, but how about being a doctor? How about an engineer? And I'm like, I can't do 2 + 2. I can write 10 pages and, in like a couple of hours, but I can't do math, and stuff. He's like, no, you'll figure that out, and stuff. So that was very different. But from what now I get the questions from Indian immigrant parents and stuff like, oh, Nandini, my daughter's interested or my son is interested, what are some of the ways to get here and stuff. So that's really a change that I am so happy to see because, I'm obviously pro-lawyer, I'm pro the law. And I like to see, immigrants be in this field, and especially women immigrants. I'm very pro women getting into this field and, growing their career in the law.
That's fantastic. We'll go through the questions. We'll have a lot of time to cover on the career aspects and choosing the professional. But would you be able to speak a little bit about childhood, growing up in India, or you said you came here very early, but at the same time, there could be something that could have kept that. Back.
No, I grew up until I was 8 in India, and then I came here, 80s, which was a very different America. than the America of today. Indians were not prevalent in the community. It was rare to see another Indian. There was no Indian stores. There was no Indian anything. You might have gone to Jackson Heights, Queens, or New York City. I grew up in New York to get some groceries. It was not like it is today. So it was a very different childhood than children of immigrants are going through today. They're part of the community now, right? It's not weird to see an Indian. So when I came here, I remember India. I was actually in boarding school for a little bit. My mother came here first as a nurse. I'm Malayali, and a lot of Malayalis are nurses, the women. She came here in the 70s with a green card because there was a nursing shortage. And then my father was in the Air Force. And my brother and I were actually separated. We're only 18 months apart, but I ended up in boarding school. And all of a sudden they come in when I'm 8 and say, okay, we're going to America. We're like, who are these people? And me and my brother are like, okay. And so then we came, and it was really difficult. My brother and I struggled a lot in that America, not today, 1980s America, where we got teased, we got bullied, we got pushed around, just miserable. And our parents, they're about survival mode, right? They don't know that you need cool shoes, to be in, to be popular, or you need to, not wear your hair this way. And you should have, they're just about making the money, putting food on the table, go to school, come back. They don't care about friends or, any of those type of things. And so you're living this miserable existence when you're a child in those days, where your parents don't understand any of this. They just want to keep you in the box and just go study and, there's no, and retain the culture. But you're in the midst of it. You're the one going to school every day. You're the one getting beaten up. You're the one getting bullied. And so I remember just those struggles. My brother, went through a lot more struggles than I did. I was a girl, so a little bit easier. But the way I tried to compensate is by doing really well in school. Mm-hmm. So that was how I got motivated, Sure. I wanted to be, number one in school, or I wanted the teachers at least to like me because I was right. Getting good at grades, even if my classmates thought I was weird because I'm, this weird Indian brown girl sitting next to them. Sure. So growing up here in those days were really tough for the Indian families that first came here. What we had to endure and what we had to suffer, it was very, very hard and stuff.
Who influenced you as a kid, like when you were growing up?
I mean, it's always my parents. Right. My father, probably more than anything else. When my mom was pregnant, I remember my mother tells me this story all the time about how my father named me. So Nandini is my father's pick. And in those days, to have a girl was, everybody wanted a boy, right? But my dad was like, I want a girl, and it was very rare at that time for a man in those times to want a girl. And right. So knowing that, even when I was a kid and even today, I'm just like, I was wanted. Like my dad wanted me, like I was, so that like is inside of me to feel like special for my parents and stuff. And my parents are very supportive and loving parents. They were hard, in the beginning. When I was a kid, I wouldn't have said that. I would have been like, oh my God, my parents, this and that. But when as an adult, I recognize all the things and sacrifices they did and trying to, come to a new country, trying to figure it out. Did they make mistakes? Of course they did, but as an adult, as a mom, I can step back and look at some of the things, objectively that I couldn't look at when I was, growing up and stuff. But I would say my father, number one, he was very confident in my abilities. That's a very thing that parents have to give to their kids. They got to believe in their kid.
I think you did talk a little bit about immigration and when you first came to the country. What was it that made you take, like, what did you feel like, okay, now as a kid, you probably doesn't know, do you know the concept of what immigration is, or do you
No.
know why you came here, or what's going to help you settle, like, can you talk a little bit on that?
I'll tell you that I didn't actually become a US citizen till I was 23 years old. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I had my green card, didn't know anything about it, didn't even think about it. My father took care of all of that, or my passport renewals. So I had no concept of my immigration status. When I think back, like, wait, I've been a green card holder since I was 8 years old. Why did I ever apply for citizenship? Why did my parents ever make me apply? Like, I didn't do any of that until I was like in law school and stuff. Even though I didn't have the concept of, being in fear of losing my H1 or losing, EAD issues or any of those type of things. But because when I go back into my own personal history of like, hey, I didn't apply for citizenship till this, and this. And, there is this element of, how immigration did play a little bit, in my life, because I wasn't born here, right? I was lucky. And now when I go back and I'm dealing with my clients and stuff, and I say to myself, wow, my mom was brave. Look at her. She came in with a green card, and, I had my green card, and I just didn't even think about it, all of those type of things. But for me, I don't remember anything in my head about my immigration status until I applied for citizenship. Then you have to do a little dive on, when you're doing the application, and you have to be like, when did I come to this country? Well, how did I come to this country? Like, what, and then you got to go through a travel history. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, that's how it kind of starts to unravel, where you start thinking about, okay, I get it now. I get it a little bit. So, but yeah, I didn't have to, fortunately, go through any of the waiting periods, any of the fears, any of those type of things like my clients have to. Doesn't mean I don't empathize with them, but I just didn't have to kind of go through that.
I mean, this is a big topic for the past almost 10 years plus, ever since the DACA program, people talking about the dreamers and all that. Kids who came here legitimately, they just fall through the system, and then all of a sudden they don't have legitimacy or whatever that, and then they're called dreamers, and then every political wave they're like, okay, you are great, and then you are not, you're not. So like some of those people, they constantly live in some kind of limbo, and fear. I know some people who don't even take a flight to go from point A to point B, even though it's cross country. They take a bus, or they just drive. So those kind of stories really are heartbreaking. So. But people like you are there to help, so that's great. Are there enough, like a lot of the dreamers in our community?
I think there's two sets of dreamers, right? There are the legal dreamers. Those are the kids who come in legally and then are aging out of the process, because if they're Indian or Chinese or Mexican or Philippines, are waiting forever for their green cards. And then there are the other dreamers who are, came in without consent. The people I deal with are mainly the legal dreamers, the concern of the age out and stuff like that. And that's something I constantly hear about, the fears for those parents, because for those kids, they do not know India, right? They don't know their homeland. Like, to them, they came here when they were 3, 4, 6, whatever. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I have to leave when I'm 21. Like, we're not going to get my green card. And then that fear of, how do we adjust this in my child's status? It's a tremendous burden for parents. And then I'm sure they sit there and think, why did we do this? Like, the reason we did it was to give our kids a better opportunity, but then
we can't,
you can't. They must go through those conversations. And I've had those conversations with clients and stuff like that. And it's a hard place. It's a hard place.
It is. Can you talk about, like, what is your first job, your experience in here and maybe outside of it, and how do you define your career progression, and also relate to any particular person or set of people or a cause that motivated you to be there?
Okay, so my first job was as a cashier in a grocery store when I was 14 years old, under the books.
Okay.
I was always a motivated kid, like always. Like I'm a motivated adult. My hands are in multiple things. I'm not a person who sits quietly and doing one thing. And that was who I was as a kid. My father, I think, again, my father's the influence, annoyed me one day and said how, something about being lazy or something, and again, it sticks in my head. And so I got annoyed with that because I felt like I was such a hard worker in school. The next day I went to the grocery store and I applied for a job and they were like, okay. And they even asked me in those days, like, you have working papers? And I'm like, okay, come Sunday. And I'm like, okay. And then I worked there till I was out of college. Like every break, every summer, I worked there. In those days, my kids would be like freaking out, but we used to hand the money over to our parents, like my brother and I. We didn't keep the money. Like my dad might have given me $5, If I made $30, it went to the family, and stuff. And that's how I grew up. That was my first like job, or like, real, like that kind of job. And then once I went to law school and I worked in college a little bit, went to law school, I worked in between the summers, like I worked for New York State housing agency in the summer one. Another summer, I was a teaching assistant in the law school and worked on campus. But when I graduated, I can tell you honestly, I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a lawyer. Like really, I went through a little bit of time in my head. Is this what I really want to do? Because I didn't have the best experiences in law school. It was okay. I had really good experiences in college because I was like surrounded by Indians and, diverse people. When I went to law school, I went upstate New York and there wasn't any diversity. So it was a kind of a shock for me coming from New York. And so when I left law school, I think I floundered a little bit. I was kind of like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm 24 years old. And I went straight from college to law school. So I was one of the youngest kids also in law school. My peers had taken breaks, like from college to law school. I wasn't. Like I entered law school at 21 years old, which is not common. I floundered a little bit and did a couple of odd jobs, but eventually I got a job in a law firm, an Indian law firm, in New York City doing immigration. Now, I never thought when I went to law school, I'd be doing immigration. It wasn't something I aspired to do or anything like that. It just happened to be the job I got. And once I got it, and then it was not, as a law clerk, I got it. Like once they started explaining things to me and I'm doing applications, I'm like, oh, I see. Oh, I see how my green card holds. I see how my mother came here. I see this. And it all started to click together for me. And then I realized like, okay, this is important what I do. Like this field is important because, I have family in India and my uncle is coming and, just different things. And it became really personal, like in my heart, it became personal. I did that for a little bit. And then I worked in a big law firm in New York, like one of the biggest. And I did that for a couple of years, which was a great experience. I learned so much, stepping from a small Indian firm to a big firm and really learning how to deal with high profile clients, how do you manage them. It was hard, but it was like the most rewarding experience that still stays with me. And then, big firm life is hard. It's, there's no out. You're not walking out at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Like none of that's happening. You're around the clock. So I did that for a couple of years and I thought, you know what? I want to do this on my own. I want to step out. And so I stepped out and it was scary. My parents were very like, you have a job. You have a good job. Why do you want to do this?
Sure.
They were just like, I said, because I want to take a shot. And, I want to see, I want to do it, kind of thing. So they were very, very scared for me, very nervous. So there wasn't a lot of that support from them because I was leaving a really good job.
Right.
And I went out, did it on my own. I had to learn everything, like accounting, invoicing, malpractice insurance, like things you don't even think about when you're just working at somebody else's place. Now
Right.
you got to think of everything,
Correct.
how do you incorporate, and I had to do it all by myself, and I had to learn. I remember learning QuickBooks, just going through that one day, sitting for 6 hours, each
This
module, learning it. And I worked day in and day out. And I still do in many sense. But, I did that for, about 12 or 13 years. And I took my firm to where I think I could take it. I had attorneys, I had whatever. And then I felt like, you know what, I want more,
Yeah.
and I took it where I could. And I came back to big law again. And then I took 2 years. I interviewed with different places. I got a few offers and then made the decision to join Green Spoon. And this is my 4th year with them. And I'm pretty happy. I'm people are like, oh, you were on your own. And how do you come back to working for someone else? Easy, because there's a lot of things that they give me flexibility in because I'm a partner, but also I want more. It's always
Right.
I want more.
So, when did you think that you're ready for leadership? The way, however you define leadership, it is, right? Whether owning a business or yourself, or you want to become partner, or you want to become manager, whatever it is,
Right.
like you can define whatever it is. And how did you think into it that, okay, I'm ready to go into this? Like,
I think some of it is inborn. Like if I go back and people who've known me since a childhood or whatever, they will say that I had exhibited some of those qualities very early on. Even in like middle school or high school, I was, head of a committees, or I was, running for something. Whatever my parents would allow me to do. I was captain of my track team, co-captain. I was on the yearbook. Like there were things that were already kind of part of me when I was a kid, and that continues forward. For me to want to, like, for example, step out on my own, I felt that I could do it because I had some grounding already. I had some little bit of experience. Like I was running an office for this law firm, big law firm. They had a small little office. I was just given that position because there was nobody else there, and I ended up running that office. So I had to learn these things. So some of it is just opportunity. Some of it is intuitively, that's who I am as a person. But leadership comes from, practice. You don't just you're not born a leader, right?
Right.
You have to practice that. You have to refine that. You have to make mistakes and grow from those mistakes. I've made mistakes, and I don't repeat that mistake. I might make another mistake, but I don't repeat that mistake. And so I always tell young people that I mentor and I talk to and stuff like that, are you willing to give it your all? Like, that's my number one question. They're like, what does that mean? I said, are you willing to work late hours for a period of time? Are you willing to be engaged all the time? Are you willing to take responsibility when your teammate screws up and call the client? Like, are you willing to do all those? I didn't do anything wrong, but are you willing to take that responsibility to deal with stuff? Leadership is not sitting in the cushy office.
Right.
Leadership is going out there and, seeing what your team's doing, helping the team out. It's looking to see when they're struggling and how do you help fix through that. Leadership is, showing them you're in it just like them. So I have no ego about any of those kind of things. Like, I'll go out there and be like, okay, why are we behind? Okay, let me take these 5 cases. I'm a partner. I shouldn't be having to do any of this stuff, but I'll just, okay, let me do it. I can do it quickly. Let's get it out. Let's help the client out and stuff like that. But like I said, it's not overnight. It takes years. It takes time. It's incremental challenges you deal with, leadership opportunities that you get, and stepping into that.
So you could say leadership is just like a muscle that grows with practice.
Yeah. It's all practice.
Right.
It's all, and it's also, research. It's also educating yourself, right? Like, maybe I'm not the best, let's say, at speaking to a team, but I went and did research or did podcasts or, and looked at different people and be like, okay, let me do a TED talk, or let me see how this person does this. How do I read up on these, and I educate myself on how to be better. So some of it, leadership is not innate. Some of it is. You got to, practice it.
Right. And I've also noticed that in school, the extracurricular things that you do in school are actually the ones which will help you now when you're a leader, rather than the curriculum, right?
Yeah.
So it's great that you are being prepared, even during your young age, to take on a bigger responsibility.
Yeah. I was that person, involved in a lot of things if I could be. So.
Okay. Being an immigrant, right? The experience, right? Do you think that have helped you in defining you to be building stronger leadership skills, or would it have hampered you? Like, what's the take on that?
It's hard. Being an immigrant for me and the field I work in has really helped me be a better lawyer. I think immigration attorneys, and they'll kill me who are not, but immigrants. But I think when you're an immigrant yourself, I think you do better as an immigration lawyer, because I think you understand, you empathize, you can put yourself in the people's shoes, right? And that makes you service these clients better. For me, being in the legal field as a woman and a woman of color, right? It has been challenging in different places. Women generally don't ascend into leadership positions, high leadership positions, just in the industry. That if you look at all the top firms and stuff like that, and who are on boards and this and that, you see always men, usually white men, and stuff. So it's a brick wall sometimes to crack, but does that mean you have to give up hope, or does that mean that you stop? No, it doesn't. But there's a wall. Like, let's be honest, there's a huge wall. Now, in today's world, being a person of color is helpful. If you're talented, if you got the skill sets to do the job, it doesn't bypass that you have to still be a good lawyer, or you have to be so good at what you do, But I think, because I do a lot of D&I, diversity and inclusion work, I can see where companies are trying to move towards, different hiring criterias, or looking at people with different lenses and not just discounting easily like they may have done before. I also think there is a big objective by all companies, nonprofit, profit, everywhere, that they want to hire diverse people. They want to hire people of color. They want to hire, and get these different perspectives in there, that they're trying to make an active step towards doing that. So for my immigrants, who are here, I would say, this may be your time, but you also do still have to understand the culture of where you're going to, and there are challenges. Like, could I come to work in a sari and a bindi and, no, I can't. I'm a lawyer. I'm in a law firm. It doesn't work that way. You have to adjust a little bit to those kind of things. Does that mean you have to completely hide who you are? No, absolutely not. But you have to come with that confidence, to say that, hey, I'm Indian, and there's nothing wrong with my culture. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Like, when I talk to people, I've talked to VPs and other people, and they don't recognize some of the struggles that I would have had, because they think my accent means, oh, I'm American, this and that. No, I'm still Indian. I grew up Indian, right? And I'll be, when I say, oh, people don't, when I was trying to go to law school, everybody thought that was a shame. Like, oh, she's going, because they're like, why? It's such a prestigious thing. Da, 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 da. I said, no, not for an Indian woman to want to go to law school. I said,
Right.
those challenges, you don't understand where I come from. And they don't, I would be like, if I didn't have like a supportive husband, or if I didn't have supportive parents in some sense, working till 9-10 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
you think that's acceptable? Like in my culture, not a chance. I married somebody who does all the cooking and cleaning. He knows I'm not coming home till 8 o'clock, and he's ready with dinner for me. Not that he doesn't work, or he does. He has a full-time job, also, but he's supportive that way. But I have to sit there and be like, oh no, I didn't cook this weekend, or I didn't, like those kind of thoughts as in my culture can change the trajectory of what I'm doing. And stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So those challenges are there.
Okay.
So, but again, it's hard work. It's putting in the time. It's educating yourself. There's multiple things that have to be done. If you don't want to do any of that, then that's okay. But if you want to get to leadership, these are the kind of things you got to do.
The first thing to invest is in yourself, and second thing
Absolutely.
you put in is your time, right?
Yep. I always say this to everyone. I talk to law students all the time. I said, invest in yourself. They'll be like, oh, this, I didn't get this or this. So, did you go buy that book? Did you go do that class? Oh, no. Oh, why? Were you waiting for someone to hand that to you? Because I said, no one in this world is going to do that. You have to believe in you. You have to invest in you. You have to do the hard work. Nobody else is going to do it for you.
We'll switch a little bit into the family, having a family, and, you touched upon a little bit of that, having supportive husband, and probably not every woman is lucky that way.
Yeah.
But, and how you grew up and also raising kids, right?
Yeah.
We'll be talking about that. So share with me with whatever you're comfortable, like tell us about your family, right? And then, we can talk about whether raising family here versus India, whether it's easy or difficult, etc. later
on. Sure. I'm married. I have 3 kids. My husband is Malayali, like me, but he's Christian. I'm Hindu, so we're coming from a blended religious family, but he grew up here just like me. He came here when he was 10, around the same time. So we have a lot of commonality when we met. He was in boarding school when he was little, just like me. And so it was a lot of similarities for us when we connected and we started talking. Like, even though we were different religions, we grew up in a very similar way. And so that was really, good for us. I didn't think that I would marry a Malayali necessarily growing up here, but it's been great. And like I said, he's very supportive. The support, it didn't necessarily come. I always tell, women, from day one, right?
Yeah.
It's an adjustment. It's years of marriage. It's, compromises on everybody's end and stuff like that. And you grow your marriage that way. But he knows, and, he has to adjust to the fact that, he didn't marry somebody like that, and that I have goals and ambitions. And it's hard on him some days and stuff like that. But generally, he's pretty supportive of me and been very helpful throughout my career.
Yeah. And especially for Indian women, career women, or otherwise in US, the family system is a little bit overbearing, right? Like, and also expectations are much higher, right? Mm-hmm. Whether from your parents or from your in-laws, we talked about cooking, like it's almost as if you have to be the one doing it, right? My wife feels that burnt a lot, like, okay, I have to cook like multiple fresh meals a day, and the kind of expectations. It's mm-hmm. how is that, dealing with that kind of things, with the career, how to balance those things?
It's hard. It's very hard. I've had to outsource some of this stuff, is what I tell people. I didn't do it all by myself. I didn't get to here without support, and support in multiple ways, besides my husband, besides my parents helping, during H1B cap season and coming and helping watching the kids, because I'm working till, 2 o'clock in the morning. But, it's having a nanny at some point in period of time when my kids were littler. Having a tutor to help with the homework because I can't be there right after school to do that. And my husband's working too.
Sure.
And my parents don't know how to help with this kind of, math and stuff like that. So there's multiple things. I did not do any of this by myself. Like I have support and I got in various forms. But is there an expectation for, I'm sure, like my in-laws, they're probably like, oh, my son is doing all the cooking and stuff. And like, where is she, But again, they've come around after years of marriage and stuff like that. And they get it. And my parents, they get it. Like they get how much I work. Like I'm not like out shopping, right? I'm working and they see the rewards that come with that. And so they're pretty, understanding now. Were they 20 years ago? Not necessarily, but they,
Do you still have strong bond with India, friends and relatives or anybody like that? Or 90%, maybe within this?
Yeah, okay. I would say 90% of my friends are Indian, but from here, because I grew up here. And 90% of them are just like me, right? They grew up here and were met in college or, and we're still friends 30 years later or whatever. In regard to India, my bond is a lot less. We used to go when I was growing up every 2-3 years. It took a lot of money to go to India and stuff, but we used to go and stuff. After I went to law school and when I really started working, that diluted because I couldn't take a month off to go to India. There's no job that's letting me do that, and stuff. So the frequency of going got, longer and longer. At one point it was almost like 6 years before I went back and stuff like that. But I hold India really dear to my heart because most of my clients are Indian, and so because of that, it's an important place, even though I'm caught between being Indian and American because I really like, I don't belong anywhere sometimes. That's what I feel like. And a lot of my friends who grew up here, we all feel the same way. But because I do immigration and because most of my clients are Indian, what happens in India, what goes on in India, my relatives in India, my clients in India, that's important to me. I don't not think about it. Like I pay attention to the politics. I pay attention to the cases that are going on. I pay attention to the cultural changes. I pay attention to all of that in part because of what I do.
Yeah.
So that's where my bond with India stays really strong.
Great. In the context of D&I, I think you do talk a lot about that, right? I recently read a quote. It's diversity is being invited to the party, and inclusion is asking for a dance.
That's right.
So,
right.
And the thing is, another common refrain from Indian friends I see is these are like great engineers, great XYZ in their companies. But in order to take up the management role, they're afraid that, number one thing is like, I'm going to use my XYZ core skills. That's one aspect of it. But from an immigrant point of view, they could still be on H-1B. And they're just worried sick that, by taking on a different type of role, is it going to impact their status and things like that.
Right.
However, like in the D&I space, more and more of people of color are going to get those opportunities. How do you think like people should maneuver these two aspects? There'll be opportunities, but they're also worried about taking on those opportunities.
It's hard. Yeah, I definitely get that. Because I obviously live that every day for my clients, and they're scared to get promoted because their perm or their green card application was filed with job A, and they're scared to take job B, even though it's a career growth, because how does that impact them? I think like I tell to every one of my clients, these are personal choices and decisions you have to make after you educate yourself. Don't blindly do nothing and don't blindly do something,
Sure.
Make sure you really look into all of these type of things. A lot of times, one of my biggest pet peeves with some of my clients is they will come to me and talk to me about what they heard on a forum or Telegram or WhatsApp groups or this, and this. And I'm on some of these groups. So, I see the false or exaggerated information that goes on in between all of these type of groups and stuff like that. And it has created such a poor information gathering, for people. I think that if you educate yourself, if you're like on a visa and you're nervous, talk to a lawyer or talk to somebody. But sometimes I have clients who say, oh, I don't want to spend the money to talk to a lawyer. Invest in yourself, invest in your future, invest, come on, guys, it's $200. I'm sure you are driving a Mercedes, some of these people, and they don't want to drive, why are you doing that? Or why you have the nice Toyota? You could have got a Kia, they'll do that, but they won't put the money into or the time into investing in knowledge, right? Sure. I'm so about that. And I think if they find a competent person to talk to, it makes it easier to make the right decision. And the right decision could be, I can't take that opportunity. It could be that.
Could be.
Or it couldn't be. The other thing I always hear is, once I get my green card, I'll do it. Once I get my green card, I'll do it. Okay. Now you're Indian. Your priority dates are 2014. You're not getting your green card for a long time. So are you going to hold in your career and not make a step because you're waiting 10 more years? At that point, you're going to be in your 50s. Nobody's really might want you at that point too much, So you have to think about all of those things and stuff. I don't think there's one size fits all for anybody. Everybody's life is different, and they have to educate themselves and look and make a careful, personal decision.
Absolutely. And a learned and informed decision.
Yeah, you have to make an informed decision. And if they do that, then whatever they do will not come up wrong.
Next, we'll talk about advice to upcoming leaders. We did talk already address a little bit of it, but what is the advice you have for leaders who are about getting started, or an advice for mid-career professionals who want to take on even bigger roles? Do you have any advice for them?
Sure. One of the things I always say is work for the job you want, not the job you have. Okay, so you want to be senior manager, but you're just manager right now, right? What does your senior manager do? What is the extra things that senior manager does? Okay, he does A, B, and C. Did you ever volunteer to do A, B, and C? No. Why not? Because you have to show, that you can do A, B, and C. Nobody's just going to promote you like that. Nobody's just going to give you a leadership positions. You have to work for the job you want, not just the job you have. The other thing I always tell people is that besides investing in yourself is, if you want to take leadership, that comes with responsibility and it comes with accountability and stress. Are you willing to do that without making any extra more money? Sometimes everything is rolled up in money. And stuff. Right. I'm not going to get paid for doing that. Yeah, you're right. But have you put a spotlight on you to say, oh, he's a team player. Look at him stepping up. We didn't even ask him to do that, right? That's how you ascend into leadership. That's how you grow. You have to make sure, if you work for me and if you went and got something done without me even asking you, but that's a thing that needed to be done, I'm going to be like, oh, okay, good for being proactive, good for thinking about things, like that. Those are simple little things. Work for the job you want.
Mm-hmm. That's a fantastic advice. Yeah. Now we'll move into the fun phase of it, the last phase. If you can say anything and place it on a billboard anywhere in the world, right? You can say anything and you have everything to place anywhere in the world. What does it say and where do you want that billboard be placed?
Okay. Well, I would like that billboard to be placed in my kids' rooms so that they see this. This is what I always tell my boys. Be the best person you can be, no matter what the circumstances around you. That's something that I want to instill in my kids. Doesn't matter what the other person does. you be the best person you can be.
Nandini, I had a great time having this conversation. I think we've touched upon a lot of things, which are quite different, but yet so similar to a lot of what immigrants go through. So thank you for having this conversation with us. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun times.